Health. And I'm jumping back on with you today because I wanted to talk a little bit about heartburn. This is something that we've talked about in the past, and it's a topic that's often surprising for people because what we're going to talk about is what's actually behind this. And a lot of the times when people are dealing with heartburn, the solution that's given to them by Western medicine, by their doctor, or by who they go to see for help can actually be the opposite of what's needed for the body. And this is not your doctor's fault. It's not to blame Western medicine. It's just that there's not an understanding of what's really going on in the system or in the body sometimes. And this is why other problems can arise as well when you're dealing with this. And so when we're dealing with heartburn, a lot of the times the assumption or what makes sense from a logical perspective, and I used to think this too, was that it's happening because stomach acid is splashing up into your esophagus. Because ultimately, we have our esophagus that goes down and connects to our stomach in our body. And so when you eat some food, the stomach does some work. It releases stomach acid and it does some churning. And when it's doing this and the stomach acid is splashing up into your esophagus, that's when you can get the heartburn, the burning feeling in your chest. And so the assumption that I had in the past too, and that a lot of doctors go based on, is that if you're dealing with heartburn, oh, that must be a sign that you have too much stomach acid. And that's why it's splashing up into your esophagus. But a lot of the times for people, it's actually completely the opposite of that. And so why is that the case? So if there's not enough stomach acid, why is it splashing up into your esophagus? And the way that I don't have my water bottle here. The way I've explained this in the past is that our stomach actually has two doors or caps. They're called sphincters. So the one that's at the top of your stomach that goes between your stomach and your esophagus is called the esophageal sphincter. I have this water bottle. It's not as good. But essentially, so this is the sphincter that goes between the esophagus and the stomach. And so if you have not enough stomach acid, this is going to remain open. So now when your stomach is doing what it's meant to do, it's churning and it's trying to break down the food that you've consumed and the door is not closed. Now the stomach acid is going to splash up and now you're going to have that heartburn feeling. And so a lot of the times what doctors will do is they'll say, okay, let's put you on a medication. And the common ones for heartburn are going to be things like what's called a proton pump inhibitor. And the proton pump is the mechanism in the stomach that causes or that creates stomach acid. So if we inhibit that, then it's suppressing the amount of stomach acid that your body's producing. Or they may call it like an acid blocker. So basically, the approach here, the medical approach, a lot of the times is to try and reduce the stomach acid. If there's not as much acid in your stomach, it's not going to be able to splash up as much because there's less volume, right? But if the stomach acid is not at a high enough concentration in the stomach, this lid is going to stay off constantly because our stomach has a trigger almost in there, an acid level trigger, that when the stomach gets down to a certain pH, which is around 2 or 3, it's quite acidic, that's when this closes. So now your stomach is churning, it's processing, it's breaking down your food, which it's meant to do, but it's not able to splash up into the esophagus because the lid is on. The door is closed at the top of the stomach. So the acid is not splashing up. So where a lot of the times the medical approach is let's suppress the amount of stomach acid that your body is creating, many people will actually benefit more from taking stomach acid or doing things to help the body increase the amount of stomach acid that it's producing. Because this is what we need to be able to close this door on the top of the stomach. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. A lot of the times too, the things that can happen, so we're suppressing the stomach acid. This is why people will often have, along with this, they may still have the heartburn, first of all, because the cap is not going back on, even though you have less stomach acid. So it still can splash up. And a lot of the times people will still have this sensation very much so when they go to bed at night. When they try and lay flat, I'm not going to tip this because there's water in it. But if the cap is not on, my water is going to go everywhere, right? So this is the same situation in our body. And so what are the things that cause decreased stomach acid in humans or in people? And this can be things like stress. This can be things like eating lots of processed foods. This can be alcohol. It can be smoking. There's a bunch of lifestyle factors that can lead to us having less stomach acid than we're meant to. And a lot of the times with age, it's a natural, I guess. It's We're very unlikely to have high stomach acid when we're beyond the age of mid-30s, 40, 50. So a lot of the times when clients come to me and they're dealing with heartburn, it's not usually people in their teens, although that can happen as well. But a lot of the times it's people who are in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and the doctor has said to them, "Oh, you have high stomach acid. That's why we're doing this proton pump inhibitor. That's why we're doing this acid blocker." And that typically is not going to be the case as we go through life because we're going to be dealing with more stress, more toxins in our system. We've eaten more probably processed food. Maybe you've had some alcohol. Maybe you've smoked in the past or been around secondhand smoke. So it's very unlikely for people to have high stomach acid. Not saying that they can't, but generally speaking, that's not the case. And that's why these medications actually aren't beneficial because they're not dealing with the cause. They're not dealing with why are you having this problem. Instead, they're like, well, let's just cut off the acid. If we get rid of the acid, then we're not going to have the issue. We still will, though. Another problem that happens here, so we have this cap at the top of the stomach that needs to close to prevent the heartburn, to prevent the stomach acid from splashing up into your esophagus. We also have a trap door at the bottom of the stomach. And the conditions in the stomach need to be at the level where there's a trigger that tells the stomach to open, to allow the foods to move through the rest of your digestive tract. And a lot of the times when there's low stomach acid, that door doesn't open either. So this is why a lot of people who are dealing with heartburn and who are on medication to help deal with this, the foods aren't getting broken down in the stomach properly, first of all, because stomach acid does have a job to do. It's meant to help us break down the foods that we ate. It breaks down protein. It helps to break down fat from long chain into medium chain so that the rest of your system is able to break them up properly so we can actually use them. So if this food isn't being broken down properly because there's not enough stomach acid in your stomach, it just sits there in your stomach. And this is why a lot of people can deal with bloating or can deal with you wake up in the morning and like you still feel full. Maybe you're nauseous, maybe you don't feel like having breakfast in the morning. Maybe it's because your body's not able to process the foods properly. And when food is left to sit in your stomach for an extended period of time, it starts to ferment. It starts to kind of break down organically, but not in the way that it's meant to, and it creates gas. So if you picture a balloon, if there's, the air is just kind of expanding, 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 expanding in your stomach. And that's why a lot of people deal with a lot of bloating, gas, and like stomach discomfort after eating because their body's not able to break it down properly, the food down properly. And so you're creating gas in your system. And eventually the pressure becomes so much that the door at the bottom of the stomach has no choice. It has to open and empty the contents of your stomach into the rest of your digestive tract. But if your foods haven't been broken down properly before this happens, especially like the long chain fats have to be broken down into medium chain, the rest of the system is not going to be able to do anything with them. So there's going to be further complications as the food goes through your intestinal tract. Nutrients aren't going to be absorbed properly. You're not going to have the proper enzymes released or substances released that are needed for the body to be able to convert B12 properly. Fats are not going to be able to be used properly. And ultimately, you're not going to get the best benefit out of your food that you're meant to. And it all starts with the stomach. Because if the stomach doesn't do like the top of the line steps for digestion, the rest of the chain of events are not going to happen properly. So this is, there's multiple reasons why going in and blocking the stomach's ability to produce stomach acid or making it so that it doesn't produce as much so you don't deal with the heartburn is not the answer here. A lot of the times when, we test clients and figure out what's actually going on with them, we can actually find that helping them by a solution for a lot of people is having some apple cider vinegar and water before their meals, which is actually giving the body some more acid. So it's actually able to start breaking down food properly. And it's able to have the trap door, the door at the top of the stomach close, and it can help with the heartburn, with the acid bouncing up into the esophagus. So what we need to start focusing on more is we need to figure out why are you dealing with the symptoms that you're dealing with, rather than just looking for a medication or a band-aid that helps with, them not being quite so bad. If it's not dealing with the cause, if it's not figuring out ways to actually support the system to do what it's meant to do, you're going to end up with problems. Things are going to become more of an issue as we go forward because, food not being broken down properly and having the gas and having the bloating is not comfortable to begin with. But then the nutrient deficiency that comes along with this can also be problematic as well. So, if heartburn is something that you're struggling with, the reason I wanted to talk about this today is I've had a lot of people that have come to us recently, which is interesting because I tend to attract people who are going through things that I've gone through in the past. And this actually isn't one of those, but I've had a lot of people that have come to us recently, and it's been people of all walks of life. We have men, we have women, we have some younger people than expected coming to us dealing with heartburn. And there's a lot of reasons why this can be the case. And so if this is something that you're struggling with, I want you to know that you don't have to. Like this isn't um even if your family had it, even if it's something that you've dealt with for a long time, there's nothing wrong with you. We just need to figure out why your body is not functioning the way that it's meant to be and what support that it needs to help it to start functioning better again and properly again. Because heartburn sucks. I have had it in the past. So when I said this is not something I deal with, it's not that I've never had it in the past. It's not something typically I deal with, but I know that it sucks. It's uncomfortable. Trying to sleep at night when you're dealing with that sensation can be horrible. Going out in public when there's so many reasons why heartburn is not comfortable and not enjoyable for people, but it is something that we can resolve. So if heartburn is a struggle for you, reach out. I will drop the link. No, just message me. Send me a message if you'd like to know more or if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to help. If you're on Instagram, you can grab the link in my bio to learn a little bit more about what we do and how we help people. And we do have a special. The special that we had in February did really well, so we decided to extend it. So for March, it's the same. We're doing 135 for your initial client bundle. So you get your first two appointments. We want to know everything about you. We want to know what your history has been. What are the things that you're dealing with in terms of life? If it's stress, if you've dealt with illness, if you've dealt with surgeries, or what's going on with you. Because without knowing all these details, we're not going to be able to give you a really good solution that's going to help you move forward. Then we're going to test you from head to toe. We use quantum nutrition testing, all of which is done via telehealth. So, thanks to 2020 and all the chaos that happened there, we have education training to be able to help people from a distance, which has been super empowering and powerful through a time when people weren't able to be seen and able to be helped. So now we're able to help people regardless of where you are in North America. So if that's something that you're interested in, grab the link in comments if you're on Facebook or YouTube, and in my bio if you're on Instagram, and check out the new client special and see if this may be something that could be helpful for you. You don't have to deal with the symptoms that you're dealing with, even if you've had them for a long time. We just need to figure out why. Why are you dealing with these things? What's the cause? And what does your body need to get back into balance? Hopefully, you found this helpful. If you have any questions, reach out anytime, or leave them in the comments below. And please, if you know anyone who's dealing with heartburn, share this with them. A lot of people don't understand this, and it can be really helpful to just have a different perspective of like, oh, okay, I don't have too much stomach acid. That's not the reason that this is a problem for me. And that also makes sense for why the acid blockers have not been beneficial. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, enjoy the rest of your